What's going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to be providing you 5 tips when making your indie video game. So let's get right into it. Before we get started, make sure to click the like and subscribe button. It really helps the channel. Tip number 1, start making your game now. For the longest time, I have wanted to make my own game, but I always assumed it is just way too difficult and I just didn't think I was smart enough. Then at the beginning of this year, a good friend of mine released his first indie game called Long Steel. I was really proud of what he accomplished, so that was what inspired me to start my own indie game dev journey. Tip number 2, pick your game engine. Picking a game engine is extremely tough to do. There are a lot of factors that you have to take into account, and there's also, honestly, there's a lot of video game engines that you can choose from. Whether there's Unreal, there's Unity, Godot, Game Maker, and there's definitely a lot of other ones that I'm just can't think of off the top of my head. You also have to take into account what kind of game are you making. Is it a 2D game, a 3D game? Is it first person? Is it third person? When I started, I tried using Unreal Engine, and for me, it was just way too complicated, and honestly, it felt extremely sluggish on my computer. So then I tried Unity and loved it. And also with Unreal, I don't have top of the line computer, but I have a pretty good computer. I have a 4070, not Ti, but I have a 4070 in my computer. I have a Ryzen 3800 3D. I think it's either 3800 or 3800X 3D, something like that. And it's definitely a good computer, and even on that, Unreal Engine was still very sluggish for me. Tip number 3, start small and simple. So when you're learning on how to make games, you want to start extremely small, otherwise you may get overwhelmed. For example, your first small mini game, you can do a simple 2D platformer, and when you collect 5 coins, you beat the game or the level. You can also make a Pong-like game as well, or even a simplistic version of Flappy Bird. I'm sure we all know what Flappy Bird is. It got it got taken off the App Store about 10 years ago, and they're actually finally bringing it back. I think it's already back, to be honest. Then your next game is when you slowly expand and add more features. This will help you learn the game engine that you are using. Tip number 4, color theory. As indie game developers, we need our games to stand out. So many shovelware and uninspired games are entering the indie game market, and it's hard to get noticed. So we need to utilize color theory. Look at games like Hades, Hollow Knight. Yes, those games have great combat, but they also stand out with the art style. That is because they are using color theory. Guys, I'm going to be honest with you though. I don't fully understand color theory. That's why I use a website to help me. No, I'm not selling you on anything. Don't worry. I'm definitely not selling you on anything, because what I'm using is a free website. So I'm just going to recommend it to you, and I'm going to recommend you to do the same, especially if you don't know color theory. I use Canva because it's free. I'm not paying a website just for it to tell me what colors work with what. So you should use a free one as well. If you want to use Canva like me, I will link it down below in the description, so you can use it, but you do not have to use it if you don't want to, and it's definitely free to use. I'm not selling you on a Canva subscription or anything like that, so don't worry about it. Tip number 5, don't be afraid to fail. I don't want to discourage you, but more than likely you're going to fail with your first game. Most, if not, well, not all, but most indie game developers do, and it definitely discourages them. Making games is extremely challenging, but at the same time, it's very rewarding. I made a personal game for myself earlier this year. It was a simple game, but I'm gonna be honest, it was terrible. It was extremely buggy. I had a weird issue at one point where when the player was near the enemy, the player would just continue moving. Now, that makes sense if you want the player to move, but when you're not pressing any of the key bindings, which was WASD to move, then that's an issue. And I honestly couldn't figure it out myself, and it was probably an issue in my code somewhere that I was skipping over that I just didn't realize. But it was extremely frustrating for me at the time, but I didn't let it discourage me at the end. So I still went on my indie game dev journey to making what I'm doing now, which is going to wind up being a commercial release. What I did prior was a personal game for me, since it was just a simple small game. But the one I'm working on now is gonna want me a commercial release so I'm not gonna talk about that with you just yet with what kind of game I'm making, but I will do it soon. As long as you continue pushing through it and trying your hardest, I'm sure you will be very successful as an indie game dev. Do you have any other tips that I did not mention? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, please click the like and subscribe button. I hope you have a great rest of your day.